Okay, so imagine this, right? There's this place, um, a Micronesian island, Pinjalap.
Pinjalap, yeah.
Yeah.
Known for something quite unique.
Yeah, and like a huge number of the people there experience color blindness. So they can't really use color the way many of us do to tell if, say, a mango is ripe.
Right. So what do they do?
Well, they use smell. They become absolute experts at identifying ripeness just by scent. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it, about all the different ways people solve the same basic life challenges.
It really does. And that's pretty much what we're digging into today, this idea of cultural curiosity.
Uh-huh.
It's more than just noticing, oh, that's different. It's that real desire to understand why, to get the perspective, the experiences, the backgrounds that make people see the world differently.
Exactly. And for today's deep dive, just for you listening, we're pulling from a couple of really cool sources. We've got this article from Indeed.com, really practical, breaks down cultural curiosity, how to get better at it.
Useful stuff.
And then there's this honestly mind-blowing BuzzFeed article full of amazing cultural facts from all over.
Oh, yeah. Some really surprising ones in there.
Totally. So our mission today is to really unpack why this cultural curiosity thing matters, what the benefits are, and explore some of those truly unexpected ways people live around the world. So maybe start us off what's really at the heart of this curiosity.
Well, fundamentally, it's a genuine wish to understand someone else's inner world, especially when their cultural background is different from yours.
Okay.
It's about going deeper than just surface facts. It's trying to grasp how their culture actually shapes how they think, how they feel, how they act. It's like a drive to appreciate just how varied human experience can be.
And it seems like that desire, that drive, it sort of starts a chain reaction. The Indeed piece mentions how it builds up cultural awareness.
Absolutely. It often starts with, just deciding to learn more,
Yeah.
actively seeking out information.
Right, making an effort.
Exactly. And the more you learn about different cultures, their history, traditions, values, all that stuff, the more aware you just naturally become. You notice more.
Yeah.
And that awareness then helps you develop perspective. You start realizing, okay, my way of doing things isn't the only way, maybe not even the default right way. You become more open to different approaches to, well, everything. Celebrating things, solving problems.
Yeah, like realizing a thumbs up might be fine here, but maybe somewhere else it means something completely different, possibly even rude.
Precisely. And that leads straight into becoming more sensitive.
Hmm.
Cultural curiosity makes you better at picking up those subtle things, the idioms people use, the gestures, the etiquette, the small stuff that can actually be really significant.
Yeah, avoiding those awkward moments or unintentional offenses.
Exactly. And understanding those nuances helps you navigate situations more respectfully. So you put it all together, the education, the perspective, the sensitivity, and it makes way for, well, greater acceptance. When you have some understanding of why someone might act or think in a certain way that seems different, you're just less likely to be surprised or maybe less judgmental. You're more able to embrace that diversity, especially when you meet people maybe new to your own culture.
So it's not just about like being nice or polite, though that's part of it. It actually has real measurable benefits, particularly, in places like work where we're interacting with more diverse groups all the time. That Indeed article listed some pretty compelling ones.
You really did. One of the biggest ones, building trust and understanding. It sounds simple, but it's huge.
How does curiosity do that?
Well, when you show genuine interest in someone's culture, ask thoughtful questions, maybe share a bit about your own background too, it just creates this open, respectful atmosphere. It signals, I value your perspective. I want to understand where you're coming from. And that feeling of being seen and heard, that's the foundation for trust. Really vital for working well together, for any strong relationship, honestly.
That totally makes sense. If you feel someone's genuinely interested, not just checking a box, you're probably going to open up more, feel more comfortable connecting. What else? What other advantages come from this?
It really boosts creative problem solving.
Hmm.
Think about it. People from different backgrounds bring different toolkits, right? Different ways of thinking shaped by their experiences.
Okay, yeah.
Cultural curiosity lets you tap into that. Asking questions, being open to ideas that maybe sound unusual at first, that can lead to really innovative solutions you just wouldn't have thought of otherwise. Valuing those different viewpoints expands your whole problem-solving capacity.
It's like unlocking extra levels in a game, getting access to new strategies, and I bet that also affects how confident people feel in a group setting.
Exactly. That's another key benefit they mentioned. promoting social confidence.
How so?
Well, if you consciously build an environment where curiosity is encouraged, where differences are seen as interesting rather than problematic, people from all backgrounds just feel safer.
Safer to speak up.
Safer to share their ideas, their perspectives, without worrying so much about being misunderstood or dismissed. That boosts their confidence, obviously, but it also makes the whole group smarter, more dynamic.
Yeah, you get more voices, more ideas in the mix.
Definitely. And the last main point was about communication. Basically, practicing cultural curiosity makes you a better communicator, period.
How does that connection work?
Because you're investing the effort to understand those nuances we talked about, the different styles, the underlying values. That helps you develop a much deeper appreciation for what other people might hope for, worry about, what they actually need.
So you can tailor your communication better, be more empathetic.
Precisely.
Yeah.
More empathetic, more meaningful interactions. It helps ensure everyone feels included, feels heard. And, it's worth saying again, these aren't just workplace perks. This stuff makes our personal lives richer, makes us better global citizens.
Okay, fantastic. So we've got a really good handle on the why cultural curiosity is so important. Now, let's get into some of those really fascinating examples from that BuzzFeed piece that show just how diverse things can be. Where should we start?
Well, we already touched on Pinchalap, right?
Right.
The colorblindness and using smell. What's really key there is how necessity creates innovation.
Right.
They adapted. Their brains learned to rely more heavily on smell because vision wasn't giving them all the info. It's a great example of sensory substitution, really, how our environment and even our biology can shape cultural practices.
Sensory substitution. I like
Well,
that term. It really shows how adaptable we are. Okay, what's another standout example for you?
Oh, the whole tipping thing. It's always a good one because it's so different across cultures.
Yeah.
The story about the taxi driver in Japan going out of his way to return a tiny overpayment, that speaks volumes about a culture where the price is the price. There's an inherent value placed on the service itself, and tipping can almost feel unnecessary, maybe even a bit insulting.
Wow, that's so different from, say, the US, where tipping is just baked into the system for so many service jobs.
Totally different economic and social understanding there. It really makes you think about those invisible contracts we have in society.
Definitely. Okay, what about, like, everyday stuff? Things people do that might seem surprising elsewhere.
Well, the Nordic practice of babies napping outside, even in winter.
Ah, yes. I've heard about this. Strollers lined up outside cafes.
Exactly.
Hmm.
There's just this deep ingrained cultural belief in the health benefits of fresh air that, for many people there, outweighs any perceived risk of the cold. It shows how core cultural beliefs can shape something as fundamental as how you raise your kids.
It really does challenge assumptions, doesn't it? Okay, shifting gears a bit. Gift giving. The article mentions something about Middle Eastern customs.
Yes, the idea that if you compliment someone's possession, they might actually offer it to you as a gift.
Really?
Yeah. It reflects this strong cultural emphasis on generosity, on hospitality, on social connection. The compliment isn't just a compliment. It can be seen as expressing a genuine appreciation, maybe even a wish for the item. So the response is this act of giving.
That's amazing. So different from just saying, oh, nice watch, and moving on.
Very different expectations around that interaction. Then there's language stuff, the Turkish gossip tense.
Okay, explain that one. A verb tense for gossip.
Sort of. It's a specific grammatical marker, a suffix you add to a verb that basically signal, I heard this from someone else, I didn't witness it myself.
Whoa.
Yeah. It highlights, perhaps, a cultural value placed on knowing the source of information. Like, how reliable is this? Where did it come from? Accountability.
Fascinating. And what about the Chinese dialects?
Ah, yes. The fact that you can have multiple spoken Chinese dialects that are completely unintelligible to each other.
Like someone speaking Cantonese can't understand someone speaking Mandarin easily.
Right. But they can often read the same written language, the same characters. It's incredible. It shows how a shared writing system can maintain this huge cultural unity even with massive spoken diversity.
Like a common thread holding it all together? That's wild. Okay, what about examples that show different societal values in action?
Well, South Korea comes up, the really low crime rates, the high level of social trust.
Like leaving your laptop in a cafe while you use the restroom.
Pretty much, yeah. In many places that's feasible. It points to this deep-seated sense of civic responsibility, maybe. Trust in your fellow citizens.
That's a powerful value. And also in Korea, the age thing.
Right, the Korean age counting system. Everyone is considered 1 year old at birth, and then everyone gets a year older together on New Year's Day.
So you count the time in the womb, essentially.
Exactly. It reflects a slightly different philosophical take on when life begins and how we mark its passage. Someone's Korean age is usually 1 or even 2 years older than their international age.
A small difference, but culturally significant.
Okay, I was also intrigued by uh, the communal cigarettes in Armenia.
Yeah, that one's interesting, often driven by economics, perhaps, but it shows different norms around personal property versus communal sharing, especially in tight-knit groups.
Sharing is caring, literally.
Kind of. And then you have things like the informality in Chinese communication among close friends or family. Using overly polite language can actually create distance, make things feel awkward.
Whereas in other cultures, formality might be the main way you show respect, regardless of closeness.
Exactly. It just shows how variable politeness itself can be. Oh, and the Swiss goodbyes.
The long goodbyes.
Apparently. Taking time, lots of well wishes, multiple stages. It seems to emphasize thoroughness, maintaining positive social ties right up to the moment of departure.
Dedication. Okay, what else? Unique solutions.
Well, Japan, again, the lack of public trash cans in many areas.
Right, you're expected to take your trash home with you. It reflects this strong sense of personal responsibility for public space, a collective commitment to cleanliness. Or you have the Pirahan people in the Amazon.
What about them?
Their language doesn't really use relative directions like left or right. It's all absolute, based on the river or cardinal directions. Upriver, downriver, towards the forest, away from the forest. Their environment literally shapes their spatial language and thinking.
Wow. And the Jain avoidance of root vegetables.
Yeah, that's rooted in deep religious beliefs about ahimsa or nonviolence. Since harvesting root vegetables like potatoes or onions necessarily kills the entire plant, it's avoided to minimize harm to living beings.
These examples are just incredible. It really hammers home the sheer variety out there, often tied to history or environment or deep beliefs. So, okay, if someone listening is feeling inspired, feeling more curious, what can they actually do? The Indeed article had some practical tips.
It did, and the first one is pretty straightforward. Educate yourself,
Mm.
be proactive, use the internet, obviously, but also libraries, watch documentaries, go to local cultural festivals or events if you can, read books, engage with different media, and maybe, most importantly, talk to people from different backgrounds when you have the chance. Just learn.
So it's about actively seeking knowledge, not just passively waiting for it. What else?
Cultivate the habit of asking questions.
Huh.
And that means asking yourself questions too, like, what assumptions am I making here?
Self-reflection.
Yeah. But also, when you interact with people from other cultures, ask respectful, open-ended questions. Not intrusive ones, but things aimed at understanding their perspective.
Hmm.
Could you tell me more about them? Or what's the best way to communicate effectively in this situation, keeping cultural differences in mind?
That focus on respectful asking feels key. It's about learning, not interrogating or stereotyping.
Absolutely. And linked to that is being observant. Just pay attention.
To what specifically?
To how people interact. Verbal stuff, nonverbal stuff. How do people navigate social situations? How do they handle disagreements? You might notice surprising similarities or subtle differences that make you think, I wonder why that is. It sparks more learning.
So, being present and really noticing the world around you. What about the assumptions we all carry around?
That's a big one. You have to be willing to set aside your assumptions. We all have biases, these mental shortcuts our brains take.
Right. They're often unconscious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you need to actively challenge your own preconceived notions about other cultures. Be open to new information, even if it contradicts what you thought you knew. Be willing to be wrong and learn from it.
That requires some humility, right? Admitting your way isn't the only way.
Definitely. Humility and openness. And the last tip Indeed offered was considering talking to a cultural interpreter or consultant.
Like an expert.
Yeah, someone who really has deep knowledge of specific cultures or intercultural communication in general. They can offer incredible insights, help you anticipate potential tricky spots, and give guidance on how to navigate things respectfully and effectively. Especially useful in, say, business settings.
Makes sense. So wrapping this all up then, it feels really clear that cultural curiosity isn't just some nice-to-have, feel-good thing.
Not at all.
It has real concrete advantages, professionally, personally, just for being a better informed person in the world. By trying to understand different perspectives, we get more aware, more sensitive.
We build trust, solve problems better, communicate more effectively.
Yeah, and those BuzzFeed examples just drive home how amazingly diverse and frankly fascinating human cultures really are.
Absolutely. Embracing that curiosity lets us move past just, tolerating difference and towards genuinely appreciating the incredible richness and complexity of it all.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Think about your own daily life. What are some of the subtle, maybe unspoken cultural norms you follow? Things you probably don't even think of as cultural.
Things that just feel normal to you.
Exactly. Now imagine someone from a completely different background encountering those things. What might they find surprising or strange? And flipping that around, how could understanding those potential differences on both sides help bridge gaps?
Or maybe think back to one of those mind-blowing facts we talked about. What did you assume before you heard it? How might your perspective have shifted, even just a little?
Yeah, we really encourage you to keep exploring any cultures that caught your interest today. You just never know what fascinating things you might learn.